Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for our virtual guests, to come to visit the University of Puerto Rico for this very interesting presentation from the Sloan Kettering Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. In fact, we know a little bit about this wonderful institution in New York City from, of course, one of our alumni that now is part of the staff there at Sloan Kettering. And she has been an advocate and quite a recruiter for our students. And I think she was one of the people that reached out to us for having this presentation today. And I wanted to thank all the people that are committed to enhancing the presence of our students in their institutions, which are opportunities that our students really value, and also appreciate your time of being today and talking about the programs that are available at the Sloan Kettering. I can just have my students introduce themselves, and so we can then start with the presentation. So let me see who wants to do the first. And we all can introduce ourselves, but I want to try to have my students first. So who wants to do first?
I can introduce myself.
Good.
Should we talk about ourselves or just?
Yes, just say your name, where your year, and what are you studying right now?
Well, my name is Sabrina Santos. In my third year, I'm a junior, and I study at the University of Puerto Rico, and I'm studying cellular molecular biology. And I'm in a lab at the university's medical campus.
And what are you studying in that lab, Sabrina? Just briefly.
Well, we study fear and pleasure, and now we're in a transition, and we used to study that same behavior in rats, but now we're transitioning to mice.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Who's next?
I can be the next one. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we do.
So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexander Figueroa. I'm from the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies in Natural Sciences, and I'm in my 5th year. And currently, I'm conducting research under the mentorship of Dr. Demetrio Sierra in the Medical Sciences campus, studying anxiety and fear following traumatic brain injury or exposure to contaminants such as glyphosate. And yeah, that's what I'm currently doing.
Okay, thank you, Alexiel. Next. Next.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Maria Fernanda Bonilla. I'm a 3rd year biology major at the University of Puerto Rico Rio Piedras campus. And I am in the lab of Dr. Cristian Bravo in the UPR medical campus, and we study circuits related to reward and punishment conflict in mice.
Thank you, Maria. Next.
I can go.
I guess.
Okay.
If you want to, Ian, you can go first. I think it was Ian.
No, it's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay. Well, my name is Amaris Velez. I'm currently a 5th year student at the University of Puerto Rico studying cellular molecular biology, and I conduct research at the Medical Sciences campus on the biophysical properties of dopaminergic neurons in the ventral tegmental area after cocaine exposure. Thank you.
Okay, Ian.
Hi. Forgive me for not turning on my camera. I'm currently kind of stuck in a traffic jam and I'm trying to get home. So my name is Ian Diaz. I am currently a rising junior. A rising senior. I'm a 5th year at the University of Puerto Rico. I'm studying cellular molecular biology, just like Omari's. And I am in a laboratory that studies the epigenetic mechanisms of alcohol dependence. And we use the Drosophila fruit fly as our motto.
Muy bien. Paola. You hear us, Paola?
Hi, sorry, I'm like entering the conference room, like to get to the meeting. Can you give me like 30 seconds?
Okay. Well, I think, oh, then Claudia then. Claudia. We don't hear you, Claudia. Can you hear me? No, we cannot hear you. We have to apologize because some of the problems here in Puerto Rico, we have had some power outages, and some of the students have had difficulties with the connection, and that's why she will write it, she says. So she'll write who she is. So here's Paola. Hola, Paola.
Hi, nice meeting you guys. Sorry, I entered late.
That's fine.
What should I say?
Bueno, where are your year? What are you studying?
Oh, okay. So nice meeting you guys. I'm Paola Michelle Morales Carvajal. I'm studying biomedical engineer at the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico, and right now I'm doing like policy internship at the Science, Space, and Technology Committee in the House of Representatives.
Okay, thank you. So those are us. So I leave to our guests to introduce themselves.
Wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to have a chance to hear about each of you, and what a pleasure it is to be with you here today. So really appreciate the invitation and for you spending some time of yours with us to tell you a little bit about our graduate school. So my name is Mike Overholzer. I'm the Dean of our graduate school, the Gerstner Sloan Kettering Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, which we call GSK for short. And with me is also our Associate Dean, Linda Burnley. There's Linda, and our Assistant Dean, Tom Magaldi, who has the stunning New York City background behind him. And we brought two of our current students here, who you probably really want to hear from more than me, Miguel. There's Miguel and Mari. I don't know if Mari, there's Mari, wonderful. So we want to tell you a little bit about our school. We certainly hope that you would consider applying to our school. If a PhD program is of interest to you, we hope you consider New York City and our graduate school. So we have an innovative cancer biology based graduate school right in the heart of New York City that's embedded in a world-renowned cancer center, the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, that maybe some of you may have heard of, if not for our science, then due to our clinical expertise in research and treatment of patients with cancer. So we offer innovative PhD training that I'll show you a little bit about in the next few slides, with an exceptional ratio of faculty to students. And so we recruit a small class each year, only 10 to 12 students in each first year class in our graduate school. And they have the opportunity at our institution to interface with more than 130 different research faculty that they can rotate with and choose to do their thesis work for their PhD, and also that they interface with in our first year curriculum, which I'll show you a little bit more about shortly. We're also a new school, so we're fairly small, 10 to 12 students each year. And so right now we have 85 total students in our whole school, but we're new. So our first class of students arrived here only in 2006. And so to date, we've had, with small class sizes, 86 total PhD graduates from our school. And as I mentioned, they interface with more than 130 different research faculty at our institution. Now, you may have heard of Memorial Sloan Kettering for our cancer care, but we have a massive research landscape with large groups of faculty who study basic translational and clinical science, and really world-renowned faculty that are distinguished by membership in the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, for example, or recognized in the National Academy of Sciences, or membership in the National Academy of Medicine, or the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, in which we have 17 different faculty in our ranks. And in addition to our hospital efforts, we have a massive research institute where you could do research as a PhD student in our school. We have $154 million of federal research funds right now flowing through our institution. And we make a lot of discoveries at Memorial Sloan Kettering in basic translational and clinical research. We've already published just this year as an institution more than 600 different research papers. And as you can see, more than 45 different patents have already been issued to our institution based on discoveries we made just this year. So we are a world famous cancer hospital, and as a research platform, we nucleate around the concept of cancer science, but really by engaging that question through all different disciplines from basic and translational research. I also run a laboratory at Memorial Sloan Kettering. I'm in the cell biology department. You can see there on the top left. And we have 9 additional departments that would remind you of a traditional university structure. For example, developmental biology department at the bottom, or structural biology at the top right, cancer biology and genetics, as you may imagine, and the others that you can read. We also have one very specialized department on the bottom right called Human Oncology and Pathogenesis program. This has more than 25 different laboratories, each of which is run by a physician scientist here at Memorial Sloan Kettering. So that these are lab heads that are both in our hospital treating patients in their clinic, and also have research laboratories in which you could pursue research as a GSK student. I want to show you a few examples of our different investigators at our institution that you could work with as a GSK student. And I'll start with that specialized program that we call HOP for short, Human Oncology and Pathogenesis program. This department is actually 27 different laboratories. As an example, is chaired by Charles Sawyers. Charles Sawyers brought to bear actually the first ever molecularly targeted therapy that proved to be efficacious, a drug called Gleevec that you may have heard of, that transformed cancer care for a condition that affects pediatric patients, chronic myeloid leukemia. It targets a particular translocation that activates a kinase shown at the bottom, the kinase called ABL. Also in HOP, in addition to the Sawyers lab, you could rotate in and join the lab of Adrienne Boire in the middle, which may be a topic of interest to some of you here today. She studies metastasis of cancer cells to the brain. And in particular, how do cancer cells get into and then reside within the central nervous system? You could also consider the lab of Christine Iacobuzzi-O'Donoghue, also in the HOP department. Christine studies pancreatic cancer. She's actually a clinician, a pathologist in our hospital. And in her research lab, she studies how is cancer evolution regulated, and actually carries patient samples in parallel to the clinic in her lab to treat them with chemotherapeutics and understand how they evolve in response to death-inducing therapies. These are just 3 of the examples of the 27 different laboratories in one of our 10 departments that you could consider joining as a GSK student for your PhD research. On the other end of the spectrum, I want to remind you too, we have a massive basic science platform, and I'll show you an example of a basic science department, molecular biology. There are 11 different laboratories in molecular biology. This department's chaired by John Petrini, who you can see on the left, and also includes as examples the laboratory of Scott Keeney in the middle, a member of Howard Hughes Medical Institute, and Zhaolan Zhao on the right. Each of these 3 labs studies nucleic acids and the transactions that control their dynamics within living cells. So how do DNA undergo breakage? How is breakage sensed and ultimately repaired? And Scott Keeney's lab, for example, in the middle, studies the process of meiosis. How are breaks regulated in meiosis, and how is homologous recombination achieved, which is the foundation of diversity? Just 3 examples of basic science laboratories that you could also join as a GSK student, and representative of the 11 different laboratories in our molecular biology department. Now, in addition to the more than 130 different research labs at our institution, we also have a massive number of core facilities that bring the newest technologies throughout our institute. And each lab, each of our students has access to all these core facilities that run from advanced proteomics approaches to screening platforms, to commercial scale therapeutic cell generation, to engineer new therapeutic cells like CAR T cells you may have heard of to treat cancer that we then use right in our clinical hospital, to structural biology. You can see here in the text, we have a cryon electron microscopy facility you would have access to as a student. in addition to the resources within the individual lab. These 32 core facilities really support cutting-edge research across our massive institution. And so within this platform, as you'll hear from in a moment, we recruit outstanding students into GSK. I mentioned we're a new school, relatively speaking, but GSK students have already authored more than 400 different research publications, and they have been honored by 60 independent research fellowships in recognition of their achievements in the laboratory. And I'll highlight one particular category of fellowships that our students have earned: a competitive and prestigious award from the National Cancer Institute, a transition award called the F99K00. This is awarded to students in recognition of their achievements in graduate school and provides support as they transition into the next stage of their careers, into the postdoctoral fellow stage. Now, as a school, GSK can nominate one student each year for this recognition, and 5 out of 5 times it's been offered, our nominee has been recognized with a transition award, really in recognition of the outstanding achievements of the students that come to our institution. I want to take a brief moment to show you 2 examples. Brian Joseph graduated just recently from GSK after earning his PhD, is now pursuing postdoctoral research in Boston. Brian Joseph came to Sloan Kettering thinking he might want to study cancer, as many do at our institution. But then after engaging in laboratory rotations and learning a lot of biology in our curriculum, he changed his mind and joined the laboratory of Eric Lai in our developmental biology program. And Brian studied within the fruit fly. I heard someone here studying Drosophila as a model system. He used the powerful genetics of Drosophila to identify new machinery that controls mRNA splicing or maturation of RNA. And in particular, you may have heard of introns. Well, if they're really large, it's hard to regulate their splicing. And he identified something called ratchet points that control the maturation of mRNAs that have really large introns. And this turns out to be critical to control normal development, as shown in the images here from his paper. For his achievements in our school, Brian Joseph was awarded what we call the Chairman's Prize in 2018. This is awarded each year to a GSK student who is the first author on an exceptional research paper, as Brian was here, recognizing his discoveries in the laboratory. I want to show you one other student who's a current GSK student, Karina Amor-Vegas. Karina also came to Sloan Kettering thinking she might want to do research on cancer and stayed with that interest, joining the laboratory of Scott Lowe, who's the chair of our Cancer Biology and Genetics program. Karina, although her interests are in cancer, she had a very creative idea to try to leverage a cancer therapeutic I already mentioned to you called CAR T cells. These are a living T cell based therapeutic that can target and kill cancer cells. She wanted to repurpose that therapeutic, re-engineer it, not to kill cancer cells, but to try to find senescent cells, which result from processes of aging, to try to target and limit those. And she actually pulled this off in her PhD research, which is quite an achievement, and published this beautiful paper in Nature. And you can see the title right there, that basically senolytic CAR T cells are those that could kill cells resulting from aging, can reverse pathology in the liver in a mouse model. And for her achievements, just like Brian, she was awarded our Chairman's Prize more recently, just in 2020, to recognize her research accomplishments in her paper. So I hope I've captured for you all the many different kinds of research opportunities you would have as a GSK student at Memorial Sloan Kettering. But I also want to highlight the educational opportunities you'd have here to enrich your development into the next stage of your career as professional scientists. And we have a really innovative curriculum. And I want to show you some key features and then also a schematic that'll explain to you how it lays out in the first year. We concentrate our curriculum in the first year. Most or all of the courses you would take at our institution are in year 1, and then you would be done with formal coursework and formally into your thesis lab and off making the discoveries that you're going to make in your PhD. Each topic in our first year course is taught by an expert in their field. And as a result, more than 80 different faculty out of our more than 130 teach that first year curriculum. They're each teaching about the topic on which they are an expert from their own experience. Our courses are also structured in an innovative way. They're completely separate from laboratory rotations. So as a GSK student, when you're trying out a lab in a rotation, you don't have to run the class because it's completely offset. You're embedded in a laboratory for 5 weeks and doing nothing else. And then when that rotation ends, you're completely embedded in our curriculum and you can focus on your classwork. I'll show you how that lays out here just a little bit. I also want to remind you, you can find all of this information and more on our webpage. And so hopefully by the end of the hour, you find our school of interest. We certainly hope you'll consider applying. But if you then find our webpage, you can find all of this information there as well, including this schematic. So I'll just highlight the first year. If you join GSK as a graduate student, the first thing you would do is enter into a rotation. You can see rotation 1 there once you've undergone orientation. Is a 5-week-long rotation. You're completely embedded in a laboratory, experiencing all the different kinds of science that they might do in a lab of your interest. Once that rotation is over, all of our first-year students then enter together in what we call a core course that has different sections. And so we have 10 to 12 students in each first-year class, a small group. You all go into class together and focus only on classwork away from a lab rotation. The first 5 weeks is called experimental biology. What we do there is consider different research disciplines that you're learning about already as undergraduate students, and some students learn even more as master's students. But now in a PhD program, we want you to think about how do you use these different kinds of science, different disciplines to actually make discoveries. And so we consider week-long topics that you already know probably a lot about. Imaging approaches, we think about for a whole week, right? At different length scales. Genetics, we think about as a class for a whole week. Biochemistry, genomics, and quantitative and computational biology. We think about these disciplines not to rehash or relearn undergraduate biochemistry, for example, but rather to think about how do I use the tools and the approaches and the concepts of biochemistry in concert with genetics or imaging to actually make a new discovery in the laboratory. Once we're finished with this onboarding 5-week course, the class then enters into mechanistic biology for 10 weeks. And in mechanistic biology, the 10 to 12 first-year students every day tear apart and dissect a research paper with one of our faculty to really try to peel back the layers of all the different biological mechanisms that we currently think we understand, and to really not only think about how are DNA, RNA, and protein, for example, and therefore gene expression regulated, and how are these components maintained, how are cells organized, and how do they function, and how are they maintained as well? How do groups of cells organize to form tissues, and how do whole organisms develop? But also, not only do we understand about all these processes, but what do the data actually show if you take the primary research papers apart and look deep under the hood? That's how we think about science for a PhD level curriculum. After a winter break, the class then goes into the second rotation and then finishes Mechanistic Biology 2. We have a 3-week intense module on immunology. Many of you may develop interest in immunology, but whether you decide to pursue that for your research or not, think about physiology in the modern era. Every scientist needs a working basis to understand the immune system. And then we have a world-class 10-week section to end our curriculum on cancer biology, which you might imagine is a feature of our curriculum in a cancer biology PhD program and at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Each week for 10 weeks, we consider a conceptual problem within the disease of cancer. For example, metastasis. What do we currently understand about that as a process? How does metastasis confront us with particular challenges in the clinic? We think about that together for a week with MSK scientists and also clinicians. And then week 2 is a new topic, maybe tumor heterogeneity or tumor microenvironment, and so on. There's then an optional third rotation. I say optional because as a GSK student, you can join one of your first 2 rotation labs straight away, or you can do a third rotation, or you can do a fourth. We'd like to have you do as many rotations as it takes to find the lab where you feel inspired to join to go make your original discoveries over the next 5 years on average. And so that's really shown here. As a GSK student, year 1 is curriculum, and then from year 2 and on, we want you in the laboratory and going to do what you came to our institution to be excited to do, is to make new discoveries. We have a second year exam, which is common to all PhD programs, a thesis proposal exam. and then a few other curricular items, but no formal classes as you pursue your research on your way to defend and graduate. So these other items involve a completely student-run, student-organized journal club that's held every semester, where 7 to 8 GSK students on a rotating basis pick a topic of interest to them. And then all other GSK students can sign up and participate with a completely student-run group all semester, thinking about a particular topic and exploring primary research papers that bring to bear data underneath that topic. We have opportunities to interface formally with our clinic at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital. First-year students join in a clinical rotation once each semester as in their first year. And then after their second year, each GSK student has the option to have a clinical mentor. This would be an extra mentoring opportunity in addition to your laboratory mentor that can really help fill in the gaps of the clinical side of a particular research project if that's of interest to an individual GSK student. We have GSK graduate student seminars every Thursday, where every student presents their work in progress, either as formal presentations like this one on PowerPoint, or second-year students give chalk talks where they have a whole half hour to talk about their ideas for their thesis project on a whiteboard along with their peers. And we have special journal clubs at our institution that also match with seminar series that we host here, including PRSS. This is the President's Research Seminar Series that brings really world-renowned speakers to our institution with a large crowd format. But GSK students have the opportunity to have lunch with these speakers and engage in a special journal club to think about the science underlying these particular seminars. So when you consider our school or any other school and think about where you might want to go to earn your PhD, you want to figure out, well, why did other students go there? What do students at GSK value the most? And they value a lot of things I've already highlighted for you. The exceptional research opportunities at Memorial Sloan Kettering. And so not only do we have cancer research on the translational and clinical leaning side, but we have a massive basic research institute where you could pursue many, many questions unrelated to cancer if that's of your interest. They value our small class sizes. We bring in 10 to 12 students per year. We do that on purpose because we want that student faculty ratio to be to the benefit of each individual student, to have as many mentoring opportunities from leadership, such as myself, and from all of our faculty as possible. That small class size also gives each individual student more of a voice in shaping our school than if we had a much larger class size. And as I mentioned, it gives even greater opportunities for support and mentoring across our institution. Who you really want to hear from, though, isn't me, right? It's our students. So we make sure at all these sessions we bring 1 or 2 students, which is the case today. You get to see 2 of our outstanding stars in Gerstner Sloan Kettering, who tell you why they came to our school and a little bit about what they're doing in their research. And first up here is an outstanding student, Mari. Mari, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Hola. I graduated from the UPR, Rio Piedras, back in 2011. No, I started. I'm sorry. I graduated high school and I started in the biology department as well, and then I defined my degree to be cellular and molecular biology, and I finished in 2015. And during those years, I was part of the Rise and Mark program. And I did also summer internships at different US institutions. I did one at Memorial Sloan Kettering, also at UCSF and University of Wisconsin-Madison. And later, I was still deciding my path, and I wanted to have a deeper research experience. So I decided to go to UCSF with an NIH diversity supplement. And I was there for 3 years, and I worked at a fly lab where I was able to have my own research project and develop even further my critical thinking skills. And then I felt ready to go into graduate school. And I applied to different graduate schools, and the one that caught my eye, and I felt that I would have the most opportunities, and that my goals aligned with what the school offered was GSK. And I am studying cellular senescence in different models, which I'm going to tell you about more now. And I will be also happy to answer any questions about the school. But let me tell you what I'm focusing. In my lab, I am part of Dr. Andrew Koff's lab, and we study cellular senescence. When the cells exit the cell cycle by different signals that stress the cell, the cells can exit the cycle into a reversible state that we know as quiescence. But if they decide to go further along the path, they enter this irreversible state that we know as senescence. And the proteins, the exit cell cycle is very well defined and very well understood. But the transition from the quiescence into the senescence is not very well understood. So for my research, I have been focusing on identifying what regulates this transition, but also what makes the senescent cell even go further in the path and become an acute inflammatory cell that is related with aging and cancer. And I am I forgot to tell you guys, I am a third year, so I just passed my qualifying exam, the TPE. So I am still developing my research project, but it's going very well. And I am happy to take any questions, but if not, if you want to take the questions later, I will pass it on to the other student, Miguel, that also study in the UP.
Mari, thank you very much. So I think we're going to take questions at the end, and we'll stay and answer everything that you have. And so why don't we move to Miguel, and then I promise I only have a few more slides, and then we'll just open it up for all the questions that might be on your minds. Okay, so Mari, thank you very much. Let's go to Miguel.
Hi, hola, ¿cómo están? Espérate, ¿se escucha mucho eco? There's a lot of echo, no?
It sounds good on my end.
Okay, so I'm gonna be quick so we can have time for some questions at the end. So basically, I'm from Bayamón, Puerto Rico. Yo entré a la UP en el 2010. I entered Rio Piedras in 2010. I did different summer internships before this. I ended up graduating from UP 2015. And then I joined the GSK graduate school now a long time ago. And so I basically, hopefully, I want to finish by May, like I'm in my middle of my last year in MSK in the school. And so yeah, so basically this slide, I just want to highlight things I have done, but everyone's path to graduate school is different. But I just want to highlight the importance of you to try to be involved on research during the summer in order to get more experience and also to improve your resume or your CV so that when you apply for graduate schools, either GSK or any other graduate school, you are better prepared, or you have more experiences that will allow you to compete against, sobresaltar comparado con otros estudiantes que también estén aplicando a la escuela graduada. So next slide, thank you. So I have this slide also to talk a little bit about my research, but the main thing you can take from this is that even when I do a lot of cancer research that is involved in some sort of translational, I also do basic research. For example, on the left, I just mentioned the type of cancer I study called MPNST, which is a rare type of cancer. And one of my main focuses of my project or my thesis is to try to develop better therapeutic strategies for this cancer. But I also study other more basic things of how different proteins or different cellular pathways are involved, how different protein interactions might be affected by the drug treatments.
And there's also some aspect or epigenetics. So basically, just to let you, this is just to let you know that even when we are in a cancer institution, there's always room to do research that is relevant to many other different things that is not necessarily cancer. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when thinking about considering GSK, that we are not only a cancer research institution, but many different topics are studied in here. Yes, and that's all.
Great, Miguel, thank you very much. So I'll also keep the ending part here very brief, and then we can open up for questions. So I just want you to know a few other things about our school. We have a competitive stipend, and so you may be aware that at programs like ours, your stipend is guaranteed the whole time you're a student here, right? And so, Mari, I can't believe you're a third-year student already. I mean, it just flies by, right? But as a GSK student, you are paid a competitive stipend. This year it's $43,500, and it goes up a little bit each year. And you are guaranteed that as long as you are here as a student. You don't have to teach to get that. It is part of being a GSK student. We offer conference travel funds every year. Pretty soon, it feels like we're all going to be traveling a bit more again, and we want our students to get out to different meetings and show off all the amazing things they're doing here, either at national or international meetings or at focus meetings within their particular field. And so we offer $1,000 every year for GSK students to go travel and show off their research. Every GSK student, when they come here, gets a computer. It's something that we do to help support their activities in our first year curriculum. You can choose a Mac or a PC, whatever is of interest. We have excellent health benefits, full medical benefits, and dental. And we offer, in combination with a competitive stipend, really subsidized housing in one of the most desirable locations in New York City. We're right on the Upper East Side, really all the way on the east side of Manhattan. I'll show you a picture in just a moment. And also just another encouragement to go check out our webpage at Gerstner Sloan Kettering, where you can see all of the alumni who've graduated. We have 85 graduates so far from our graduate school who've earned their PhDs. And you can find a profile for each one of them on our webpage and know exactly where they are right now. You can even have a link to their thesis and see what they did in their research. And although we're a young school, what you'll notice when you look through there is we're already honored by having many of our graduates out in the world, assuming now leadership positions, both in academic science and also in industry, as shown on the left and right sides of this slide, and in many other research careers that we also support, such as science-related business and finance, for example. Now, I promised I'd show you a picture, and so this is what it could look like if you did research at our institution, a little bit like Tom Magaldi's background there. If you get a lucky window, you might be able to pipette and have that amazing backdrop of New York City, or read a paper at the table on the left with that as your view out the window. These are taken from the building where more than half of our research laboratories are located and where the home of our graduate school is. Our GSK offices are within this Zuckerman Research Center from where these images were actually taken. And I want to point out, New York City is a cultural hub, as many of you would know, but also a scientific one. And within our community here, there's actually 3 high-powered institutions within basically a block of each other. Memorial Sloan Kettering, we've told you a lot about today. Right across the street from us is Rockefeller University. And also right across the street, a block away, is Weill Cornell Medical College. And so really Cornell, Rockefeller, and Sloan Kettering have this really vibrant, collaborative, tri-institutional community here that we also consider to be a real scientific hub, particularly in biomedicine. And we hope you'll consider that, as I do, an exciting place to come and make discoveries in science. A couple other just very small pieces of information, but really important. If any of you are thinking about applying in this cycle to a graduate school, please consider us. Our application is open online. The deadline is December 1st. What we require in the application is very similar to other PhD programs: a personal statement, which we can talk about if anyone has questions, letters of recommendation, transcripts. Our GRE is completely optional. And so I say completely because at this point, most students do not submit GRE scores at all, and there's absolutely no penalty for not submitting GRE scores, but occasionally students still do take the GRE and want to show us their scores, and that's also fine if that turns out to be you. We have no application fee, So it won't cost you any money to apply, so please consider it. We would love to see your application at GSK. And a couple quick notes that we can talk more about if there are questions. What are we looking for in top applicants? Try to tell us a little bit about your passion for science in your application, and equally important, your experience in lab. What kinds of experiences have you had solving problems in a laboratory? What kinds of hypotheses might you have already entertained, and with what experiments? Tell us what you've done in a lab so far. We're looking for some evidence that our curriculum, I showed you some of the details, might be a really great fit for the next step in your process of developing into the professional scientist that you might want to become. And of course, we're looking for a clear commitment to becoming a PhD level scientist. We love what we do, and we're also very serious about our science, and we're looking for that same commitment in top applicants to our school. I hope overall, we've also shown our main priority really at the end of the day is you. Our school is for our students. That's why we bring students here today, and why you should always hear from students at a school. That's our priority. We set up the most innovative curriculum that we can, and we continuously try to build the most supportive community and inclusive community that we can, so that for our students and for all of you up and coming talent in science, we can help unlock your potential and your ability to make new discoveries that drive biomedicine forward. So I'll finish my formal slides here and actually stop sharing. It's been a real privilege to just show you a little bit about Gerster Sloan Kettering, and also about Memorial Sloan Kettering and the research opportunities that we have. And we want to make sure we have a chance to answer any of your questions. So anything that you have on your mind, we're happy to answer. And I've seen a question or two already in the chat box that, Tom, I think you might have addressed.
I addressed the question about the courses after the first year, and it's to reiterate, the courses are really just a seminar series and then the journal club. There's no hardcore science courses like Mike showed after the first year. Those are all taken care of sequentially after each rotation. The next question is, there is a question from Paula. Paula, you just want to ask this question or elaborate more on what you asked about outreach?
Yeah, so I've seen like in many institutions, like they require the students to do outreach to other, like, let's say other community, especially like minority groups. So I want to know like if like GSK like is engaged with outreach and what kind of activities they do.
Sure. So I can start and others can fill in. Expanding outreach is a critical priority, right? And so first of all, our institution, Memorial Sloan Kettering, has a lot of different avenues for outreach in which GSK participates. So we have, I'll give you some examples, and maybe my colleagues can add more in that I've forgotten. But for example, we have outreach to local high schools in New York City to bring students in to hear about all the new exciting science in MSK that we host as kind of a fun evening that GSK is also involved in. We also have summer undergraduates coming through our institution from all over. And that's an opportunity for us, again, to try to bring research opportunities within a laboratory, formally through GSK, where our students can also participate in mentoring those undergraduates each summer through journal clubs and other formalized opportunities. In terms of requiring outreach, we don't require it, but we want to be involved in it, and actually we have several student groups that are very active, including a women in science group called GWIS, GSK Women in Science, and they're in the process of formalizing such an outreach to local high schools that would be even more GSK focused, to have mentoring opportunities within New York City to students that might not otherwise be exposed to science at that age or at all, right? To try to generate new opportunities here within our larger community. But I don't know if others want to add in to my start there.
Yes, I can add. There's a tri-institutional group that is involved in outreach, and one of the chairs of that group is a graduate student in our school, and this group actually focuses on helping undergraduates, especially minority students, with their graduate school applications, and also helping them find different research opportunities and exposing them to different research environments, but also helping them know that they actually belong in this type of community. So yeah, it's actually something very important that we do as a school, but also as part of a community with Cornell and Rockefeller University.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mari.
I have a question regarding the coursework of the first year. Let's say that I'll do my PhD in some topic of basic science that doesn't have to be with cancer. Does I still have to take that last course about cancer, or that will be changed by another topic that fits more with my PhD?
So that part is part of our core course. You would still take it. All of our students take that together. And it's important to point out our PhD is a cancer biology PhD, right? And so at the end of the day, the majority of our students have some interest in cancer biology, although their interests also may go other places, and their research may actually not involve cancer at all. Cancer biology is a nucleating theme of our institution and also of our PhD program, so you would take it. I promise you it'd be really interesting, right? So, and one of the ideas of nucleating such a massive research institute around a disease model, cancer, is that, as you know, there are hundreds of different kinds of diseases that we call cancer that involve every kind of cell type almost that you could imagine. And unfortunately, nearly every regulatory process you might think of can go awry in cancer, or could be leveraged in the reverse to try to treat cancer if we only understood it. And so really, I think the students find extreme value in all of that curriculum, taking it together, no matter where their individual research interests go, because cancer as a theme is so broad. We tend to teach it conceptually through all the lenses of different disciplines. And I'll give you one other example. I never did immunology research formally in my career, but now I collaborate with a lot of immunologists, and we have ideas that interface with immunology, but I never had the opportunity to have immunology in a curriculum. And that would be another example that is traditionally sort of an immunology program curriculum or not. We rather think that all of our students should take really biochemistry, molecular biology, some cell biology, developmental biology, stem cells, immunology, cancer biology, and then within that zone, they will identify a particular research interest, but they get a really well-rounded education, although, as you point out, nucleated in some ways around cancer by virtue of our institution. It's a great question. Sure.
I have a question regarding the summer program that you mentioned for undergraduate students. Could you talk a little bit more about that summer program?
Certainly. So we actually have 6 different summer programs at Memorial Sloan Kettering. One we run formally right through GSK, which is our in-house graduate school that we're here to represent for you. It's called the Summer Undergraduate Research Program, or SURP. It also has an open application right now you can find through our webpage. And it very much is a mirror of our graduate school. You can apply to that. It's a 10-week summer program that's very broad-based. And so you, based on your interests, would select faculty from our more than 130 that are of interest to you as an opportunity to embed in a lab for a 10-week experience that's research-focused, but also has some curricular opportunities. We have weekly journal clubs with GSK students that run it, weekly seminar series, and a few other opportunities for sort of education. But really, it's a research-focused opportunity for 10 weeks every summer to which you could apply. Let me just add, there are also, I think it's 5 other summer undergraduate opportunities at our institution, which you can also find prominently on the web, that are more focused in nature. For example, we have an engineering summer program that we share within the Tri-I, we've mentioned already, along with Weill Cornell. We also have an imaging-based summer program and a computational biology-based summer program, and so on. So there are numerous opportunities at our institution for summer research. Some are specialized programs like that. Our GSK SURP program is a broad biological and cancer biology program to which you could apply.
Thank you.
Certainly. Other questions? Let me say one thing. This is not your only opportunity to ask us questions, okay? So please reach out anytime to any of us here. If something comes to mind much later, or if you didn't want to ask it here, reach out and we're happy to answer things over email too. So this is not your only opportunity to ask something that might be on your mind. And I'm happy to chat with any of you individually at a later date. If you want to discuss graduate school or the applications or whatever, feel free to reach out.
I have another question regarding both the summer program and what you look for in the PhD applications. I know that you provided like the bulleted list, which was very cool, but I wanted to know what stands out for you the most, like when you read an application or when you say, okay, this is a student that belongs in this institution.
Yes. Okay, I'll give you a piece of advice, okay? So first of all, every applicant is so different. And we're not looking for one thing. We're trying to understand you, for example, as an applicant, the best we can from what we can see. How did you write about your science? What experiences have you had? What do the letters say? Is there evidence that our curriculum might be a good fit? Okay, so we're looking at everything. We're not looking at one particular data point, one particular letter, one thing in a statement. Every application is read by a committee of faculty, and then we come together and we really talk about applicants to try to figure out who might be the best fit. Because what we see every year, and it's probably for you too, we see people who are going to succeed in science all over the place. The question is are we the right match for what we can see that you might be really excited and we might be able to deliver for you the next step that you need in your development? And so I'll give you now my piece of advice, because I'm being very vague, right? Oftentimes you can, when you read an application, the way someone talks about their science is very meaningful. And so when you write about your science, I'll give this piece of advice to all of you. What we tend to see a lot in personal statements are sort of technique writing, right? The techniques that you have learned and become perhaps proficient in a laboratory environment. And I point this out as a piece of advice because also it's been tough lately to get experience. We've had COVID. Other things have happened as well, and probably to many of you that have limited opportunities, right? And so I want you to keep in mind, it's not only how much research experience you have had or anyone has had, it's also how you think about the research you have done and how you write about it to the committee that will read your statement. And think about it, the faculty that will read your statements, whether it's for a summer program or the PhD program, they come from all different backgrounds in research themselves. And they may not have any idea about the pathway, for example, that you might have worked on in your system or the concept. And so your ability to talk about your research at a high level, what I mean is conceptually, talk about hypotheses, displaying that you have a feel for what's interesting about what you might have accomplished. Make sure you put those things in there too, how you think about biology through the lens of the research you did, not only the techniques you may have come across, because at the end of the day, each of you has the tools that you need to be successful, I have no doubt. And where you go in your career, you will learn the techniques that you need to learn. What we're looking for, a lot of programs are looking for, in addition to that, is are you ready to think in our curriculum about hypotheses, right? What makes for an interesting question underneath a larger topic? And how do you address an interesting question with an actual experiment if you were to design it? That's really hard to do. And so we're also looking for those kinds of things. Did the person write about their science at a level where we think they might be ready for what we hope to unlock as the next step? Are there any other, from our distinguished panel here, any other pieces of advice? Because that's just one piece of advice. And like I said, we're not looking for one thing. Linda, Tom, or Mari, Miguel, you want to add anything else?
I think that is also great. And also, try to make it, it's a personal statement, but it shouldn't be called personal because it's not too personal, but make it like personal, show that you have passion for what you did before, but also, if you have gone through things like everyone has gone through COVID, this past year. And so and if that affected you in a particular way, talk about it. and talk about also for in Puerto Rico, we went through the Hurricane Maria that devastated the island. You guys also go in the UP through a lot of things, and we make great science in Puerto Rico, but the resources are not as they are here. Talk about those things, because those things are important, because of what you have, you make a lot. And that is a life skill, not just a science skill. That is a life skill, and those things are important.
Totally agree. And that's part of what we try to think about, right? Because look, great scientists come from everywhere, and they're at all different stages of development when we might see them. We're trying to, and a lot of other things in your life may also add up to being personally very resilient, and that matters a lot in a PhD, right? So I totally agree with what Mari said. Feel free to tell your story as well. And one of the things I like about science in general, even when you interview, you can be authentic, right? This is not necessarily so much like it can become in other fields, maybe the business world, where there are always standard questions and whatnot. You have a chance to be a little bit authentic in science, and you can write your statement from that point of view as well. Other pieces of advice, anything else we want to say?
Yeah, maybe before we leave, I just want to all of you to let you know that you don't be afraid to apply for summer programs. Don't be afraid to apply for graduate school programs. You don't lose anything by trying, and who knows, maybe you want to go to Harvard, or you want to go to GSK or whatever. Just try it, and then just by trying, maybe you get the chance. And then if this is something you want to do, like doing research, just keep trying. If you don't get the first time, there's nothing wrong by trying a second time. So not everyone goes through the same path. Like I went from UP to graduate school. Marimar told you that she went through a slightly different path. Everyone's different, so just keep trying, and that you belong in graduate school, you belong in research. If you want to do this, then definitely go for it. And then there's people along the way that can help you. Even, for example, even in JS, when you think in why GSK is also good for people from Puerto Rico in general, as a general, maybe GSK or institution doesn't have a big diversity as you might think, but in New York City, we are in the hub of like a big diverse city. Like you can find everything you want. And then, so even if you don't feel represented sometimes, like in some institutions, there's always the support of the community. And then, yeah, just if you want to do research, just try it. And then, as I put in the chat, don't be afraid of contacting me, Marimar, Mike, or anyone, Linda, Tom. Like we are willing to help, even if you are not interested in our school. Like that's why we are here for. Yeah, and that's all.
Absolutely, thank you. Couldn't agree more.
And I wanted to add to that Miguel said is something very important. When you're thinking about doing graduate school, that's not just 3 months and I'm done. That is a couple of years. You have to choose a place where you're gonna be happy. And to be honest, New York City is great. It has the winter, but Puerto Rico is just a 3-hour flight, so you can always escape to the warm weather easily. So just think about that too, because you have to choose a place where you're gonna be happy.
Oh, I should write my email, I guess, right? Let me write my email here. Okay, so I don't know how much time we've got. I don't want to hold people past, but we're happy to answer questions. I'll put my email in here.
I have a question about professional development support for your students. How would you address that part? Because of course the science is extremely important, but as we all know, the part of providing them with the skills to excel as an independent researcher from the standpoint of the capacity to develop as a scientist beyond the bench is as important. So
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's something that we take as an institution very seriously. And actually, I'm going to kick to Tom McGaldy first to start off, because he used to do this here He's now our assistant dean, but used to work formally for this actual office. So Tom, do you want to start?
Yeah. So in terms of the not so I don't call them soft skills anymore. I think that's sort of cheap. I call them foundational skills, right? These are skills that you've mentioned, Carmen, that are essential to be an independent scientist outside of what you do at the bench. So we offer both seminars and then an opportunity to actual practice. Right? So these are things on how to give a good presentation. And that is directly through the graduate student seminar series. I love to see the evolution of our students as they learn how to give a good talk. And many of them don't start out as such, but by the time they graduate through practice alone, they do. But I give a presentation on slide design. We run a class on science communication, how to write a manuscript, but also how to go to either a cocktail reception at a conference, or what do you do at the coffee hour, right? Just how to have a one-on-one conversation with another scientist or a PI that you want to approach to do your postdoc or to collaborate with. We offer a fellowship writing course, and then we offer sort of more broad professional courses that are both relevant to life in science, but if you wanted to go do something in biotech or industry, and this is things like leadership, conflict resolution, negotiation, skills that are important in and outside of academia. So we do this both formally in formal courses, but then also practicing at things like the graduate student seminar series, where people get to practice these skills several times a year.
Right. So we have an Office of Career and Professional Development that reaches out to our students on a regular basis, and we always have workshops, class opportunities going on at the institution level, in addition to what we do within GSK. And also, I think, our focus is in finding the up and coming scientists that we think we can give world-class training to, but also many of our students are here, earn their PhD, and then decide, you know what, I want to do something different with my career, and that's also fine. And so it's very important that we engage with students as well throughout the process to try to understand where their life is turning. Is it still what they thought 4 years ago, or is it something different? And then let's help find career opportunities within where this evolving landscape is moving to. So we take it really seriously, and there's a lot of effort here in career development.
Thank you. Thank you for your answers. Well, I think there's no more questions. Otherwise, we've been quite engaged in asking questions, and I think that our students are, the jewels of the crown, at least in my perspective, and I guess in your institution as well, because they are the reason why we do this, and of course to make discoveries, but through people that are so passionate about science and with an amazing capacity and potential, just like Mari and Miguel, that are now excelling in your institution. I imagine this new crop of undergraduates that we are training here from the focus of the neurosciences are also very willing to learn new venues and also have experiences beyond what is the comfort zone, I guess, that we try to create for them here at the UPR. So we thank you, all three of you, and Mari and Miguel, muchísimas gracias for taking the time and joining these wonderful colleagues from Sloan Kettering. And I really appreciate your time and talking to our students. And since we, as I said, recorded this, we will have it available for those that were not able to join us. And of course, keep in touch.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We definitely will. And likewise, we hope to hear from you again. And for any of you here or that may see this recording, feel free to reach out. It's been our pleasure to tell you a little bit about our school. And we hope to talk to you